Hey everyone, Reaper here again with another video. This is another part in books that people are not really talking about. Again, like I said in the other video, I'm sure there are people that are talking about these in some form or another, but I don't really hear too much about them, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, or on YouTube. And I think I just bring a little more attention to some of these books for you so you can go out and maybe get them. I think they're relatively cheap. Well, some of them are relatively cheap, but I think some of them are being kind of ignored. And well, let's start taking a look at them, right? Here's one that I think a lot of people don't really think about, but I think it might be worth paying attention to because right now it's very cheap. So if it doesn't go anywhere, very low risk. Very low risk. Here we have the Spectacular Spider-Man 137. So what's the big deal with this one? Well, I don't think there is a big deal with this one, but I believe that it's the first full appearance of Tombstone. I mentioned in a previous video, Web of Spider-Man 36, the first appearance of Tombstone, a book that I don't think gets much attention. He makes his second appearance in this book, I believe. And I think it's a relatively cheap book and high grade. You could probably find it in a $5 bin or a $1 bin or whatever. And it's, like I said, low risk and worth getting. If the Marvel Universe is definitely if the Marvel Universe intends to open its doors to Tombstone in some way or another as a low priority villain. All right, but it's definitely worth looking into and very low risk. Here's one that I think a lot of people don't necessarily give too much love to, but I think it's worth looking at. We have X-Men number 5. Second series X-Men number 5. This is the first appearance of Maverick. Now, when the X-Men show up, and I don't know when they're going to show up, they might start showing up in little bits and pieces in this next phase before they actually get to like the next phase where they actually have a movie and all that stuff. So it might be some time before all of the X-Men come together in a movie. However, I don't believe that you're not going to see little pieces of them along the way. All right. With that book, the first appearance of Maverick, if Disney Plus continues to be successful and they want to do a series, a Wolverine series perhaps, that's not too unbelievable. All right. I think that'd probably be really cool. Right? Punisher had his series on Netflix. So did Daredevil, Loki for God's sake, and Scarlet Witch. Why not Wolverine when they're ready for him? That's totally something I could see a TV series. That would probably be a really cool TV series. Well, if that's the case, then of course everyone's thinking of Incredible Hulk 180, 181, 182. You're right. Giant size X-Men number 1. But don't you think some of those, well, at least half of them, are a little out of range right now? So if you're really looking to get some books that might be related to Wolverine, in addition to those, you might want to look at, obviously, an Iron Fist 14, the first Sabretooth, and the Weapon X one, whatever that is, Marvel Comics Presents. I know that's been getting some attention as of late. But I also think other characters that are related to Wolverine, like Maverick, might be worth looking into. And that's X-Men 5. And that book in high grade, you could probably get for like $20. $25 in high grade. I'm not talking like 8.5. I'm talking like maybe 9.6 or maybe even a 9.8 if you get it raw. Because whenever you get them slab 9.8, they're always going to want more than that. But it's very possible. So I would start collecting Wolverine-ish characters right now. Characters that might have something to do with Wolverine. Because I think when the X-Men are introduced in full capacity, they're going to flesh out a lot of those characters. And I think one of the characters that they're definitely going to flesh out in whatever form they bring him in, or her, it would be a Maverick character. A character like Maverick and several others. So you might want to get that now. Again, it's one of those long-term things. I know a lot of people don't like to think long-term. They want to buy it, and within like the next year, they want to see that book get on fire. Doesn't always happen that way. That could be a book that catches on fire in 2-3 years. But right now, it's very cheap. And it's affordable. But I'm sure people will complain about it a few years from now when it does get hot. I'm like, oh, you used to be able to get that book for this amount. Again, like I say, why didn't you get it then? Why didn't you get it for that price when it was that price? Here's another one. Now, the issue before this is getting a lot of attention, and I talked about in a previous video, but I think this one is sometimes ignored. Here we have Uncanny XMen 283. This is the first full appearance of Bishop. Bishop although, you know, this cover's pretty cool. The 282 is a pretty cool cover. But regardless, that's the one that's a lot of people getting attention to. I mean, even back when I first started collecting comics, back in the 90s, that was the one. If you were looking for Bishop, it was 282 that everyone was looking for. But it was 283 that is his first full appearance. Now, I'm not saying that the full appearance is going to be more valuable than the cameo. You know, we all have those conversations. Oh, Darkseid, Wolverine, all these other characters. Sometimes it's different from character to character. But I definitely think the 283 is worth looking into. Yeah, because I do believe you can get it fairly cheap right now in high grade. So you might want to look at it. I got 3 more here. Here's one that I don't think a lot of people talk about, but it's a pretty cool issue nonetheless. We have The Mighty Thor 225. This is a hard book to get in high grade. My copy is probably like an 8.5, 9.0. Definitely a cool book to have. It's the first appearance of Firelord. I believe it's one of Galactus's heralds. Now, as we get into the multiverse, we don't know necessarily where that's going to go and whom it's going to lead to and all that. So it might be worth getting some of those books. Firelord and all the other heralds. I mentioned this in a previous video I did maybe a year ago. I don't remember. But again, let this serve as a reminder that it might be worth looking into. And I definitely think that one's one worth looking into. 2 more. Here we have a DC one. And this one's not necessarily cheap. My copy's probably like an 8.5. But I bought it years ago when no one was talking about it, and I still think no one's really talking about it, or at least as you know, I think they're talking about it a little bit, but not that much. Here we have Showcase 55. This is the first Silver Age appearance of Solomon Grundy. Now, the first appearance of Solomon Grundy, what is that? All-American 61, that has one of the most classic covers in all of comic books, and it's very, very expensive. And that's been not just with crazy prices, you know, the crazy price era in which we live right now. That book has been out of reach for a lot of people for a long time. Well, I'm not saying that this is the next best thing, because I don't think it is, but this is certainly, I think, a good thing to get, and it's one that I don't think a lot of people pay too much attention to. Sure, there are some people that are paying attention to it, but I think you could try to get, I don't know what you can get an 8.0, 8.5, 9.0 copy for nowadays, but I don't think it's terribly expensive. But I definitely think it's a pretty good book to have. We don't know where DC Universe is going to be going, but I definitely think that Solomon Grundy is definitely a character that, who knows, they might revisit in some sort of Suicide Squad sequel or whatever. You just never know. And the last book for this video, this was mentioned in one of the comments, and I wholeheartedly agree with it. And again, it's another book I talked about, I don't remember when, but it's something that a lot of people don't pay too much attention to. We have Marvel Team Up number 65. This is the first American appearance of Captain Britain, and it's also the first appearance of Arcade, he was one of my favorite characters when I first started collecting Arcade. I just thought he was, you know, so corny but so funny at the same time. So cool at the same time, excuse me. Again, this is a book that I don't think too many people are paying attention to. I really don't. I mean, when it comes to Captain Britain, everybody wants Captain Britain number 1. And that's pretty pricey. All right? That's a little pricey. But for those of you that are not really interested in going that route, you can still get this book in a nice grade. My copy's probably an 8.5, 8.0, 8.5. So it's not super high grade, but it's not low grade either. You could probably get this book for, I don't know, maybe $50 in this grade. If you want to go a little higher, maybe $100, $120. I think it's worth it. I do. I really do think it's worth it, especially with the first American appearance of Captain Britain. And I don't know what's going on with Arcade. I don't want to say that, oh, I could see Arcade in a movie. You never know. Or a TV series. But I definitely think it's one of the books that's not really paid attention to. Not too many people are talking about it, or at least talking about it that much. So, I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a couple of comments if you like. Let's keep it civil. All right. But what are some other books that you think are not really talked about as much? I'd be interested in hearing about it. Take care, everybody, and be safe.